What is up, my beautiful gemstones? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing more encounters with shape-shifting entities. We've talked about shapeshifters and skinwalkers a lot here on this channel, but it seems like no matter how many encounters that I discuss with you all or how many people I speak to, there are always more encounters to be found. I sometimes can't believe the sheer volume of encounters with these types of entities that are floating around out there. And it absolutely terrifies me because if you think of the implications, right? Are we ever really safe in the knowledge that those around us are who and what they say they are? The answer to that is no. Sit with that for a minute. Or could they have been taken over by something out of this world or some sort of ancient spirit or something? There are many things circulating in this community that we discuss here often that we have somewhat clear and definitive answers for, or at least very strong opinions about. What they are, where they might come from, etc. But with shape-shifting entities, there seem to be really no rational answers, and, at least in my opinion, it's one of the hardest things for skeptics and non-believers to simply explain away. These things, along with a few others, seem to be just hopelessly bizarre and defy any attempt at any sort of real answer. It's hard enough in this community to come up with definitive answers and tangible proof to the things we are studying or that we come across and encounter on a regular basis. But sometimes, like in this case, it's downright impossible. I've covered reports of encounters with shapeshifters before, and I've recently come across a whole slew of new encounters for us to explore. Without further ado, let's jump right in. I saw a post on Reddit from someone called Many Realities and also saw that this person is someone who has a YouTube channel or who had one at some point about paranormal phenomena, and he was posting an encounter that someone had sent to him, like you all send me for the listener encounters. The woman told him she had a very scary and bizarre encounter with a shapeshifter when she was only 10 years old. For me, that right there makes her all the more credible because most of the time our minds haven't been corrupted yet with either our parents' beliefs, the beliefs of society and our friends, and it's more than likely she actually did have this encounter and wasn't influenced to make it up or lie about it in any way. I mean, sure, you could say that she made it up afterwards, but rest assured, I would not be including it here in this video if I didn't wholeheartedly believe in this person and their encounter. This 10-year-old girl was at her aunt's house, and the house was located just at the edge of a very dense and very dark forest. It was right around dusk, and she was out climbing a tree not far from the house when she saw something very strange emerge from the trees. So this woman reported to Many Realities, quote, "She saw a young man wearing a lungi emerging from the woods. She came down and stared at him. As she kept staring, the face and features of the man changed, and he was transformed into one of her 4 uncles. She didn't realize what was happening and started to call out to her uncle, but he never looked up at her and appeared lost. He kept walking along the edge of the woods, staring ahead, keeping a straight face. Sometime later, the face changed again, and now he looked like another uncle of hers, then another, and then her 4th uncle. She went blank at this and could not hear the screams of her aunt from behind. She kept staring at the figure, which then took the form of a middle-aged man, still wearing a lungi and having a long beard on his chin. He kept walking all along the edge of the woods, and now her aunt started to scream louder and started to pull her back into the house. It was at this point she got the goosebumps and started to run home along with her aunt. When they reached home, her aunt told what they saw to everyone else. That night, the aunt's toddler got very sick suddenly and almost stopped breathing. Being the family of pastors, they all started praying loudly, putting hands on the baby, which made the baby scream unearthly. The baby could not be controlled, as if he had gotten enormous strength from somewhere. They kept praying, and gradually he fell quiet. My friend said that till this day, her cousin would stay weirdly quiet all the time, end quote. By the way, I had no idea what a lungi was, but when I looked it up, I realized it's just a type of sarong that's popular around the areas like in Bangladesh. So it's not uncommon for people who have had encounters with paranormal entities, shapeshifters in particular, and doppelgangers as well, to either become sick themselves or for the entity to be somewhat of a foreboding that someone will very soon become very sick. However, I've often wondered if it's the entity itself that brings the sickness, because it doesn't seem so benign as a mere and simple warning, at least not in this case. There are some people who I spoke to about this who thought that maybe the sighting of the bizarre shapeshifter was possibly the reason the child became well, but for me it makes more sense that, regardless of whether the entity was sinister in nature or not, that it was the prayer that did that. That just makes more sense to me, but you guys obviously are allowed to have your own opinions. What could this thing have possibly wanted? Did they just happen upon it, or were they specifically meant to see it that day, in that time, and at that place? I don't know enough about shape-shifting entities to be able to answer any of those questions, but what I will say is that they are a type of ancient spirit that not many people know too much about, because encounters with them vary so greatly from one to another. Also, the strength of the toddler and how it resisted the prayer, that to me is more on the level of the demonic, or at least very low vibrational, right? I mean, most of you guys know that if you have anything to do with me, my channel, or my live streams. So I don't think this was like a banshee type entity that was forewarning them. I definitely think it was the cause. And I do think they may have happened upon it, but it said that they were a family of pastors, meaning maybe one of them accidentally drew it in, or maybe it was seeking souls that had given themselves over to the higher power, the creator, to God, to the Lord, whatever you want to call it. I want to talk about this for a minute because I was guilty of it too. So when I was younger, I always thought that shapeshifters were people turning into animals or the other way around, and didn't even know that these spirits would shift from person to person like that. But I've had enough personal encounters with them now to know that anything is possible. I found a report on Phantoms and Monsters where the witness, a woman named Miriam Pashby from Round Rock, Texas in the United States, said she had an experience with one of the shape-shifting animal creatures. She was walking with a friend from her dorm at the University of Texas System, and they had come to a park that was near campus. They planned on practicing and playing the guitar, and as they sat at the picnic table doing just that, feeling totally and completely at peace, something really strange and bizarre happened. She said, quote, "Night was falling and I scanned the park around us. Lo and behold, about a half a football field away, a creature skulked from behind some bushes, crossing a small space to disappear behind some other bushes. It was canine, but I can tell you now, it was not a recognizable dog to me. It was not shaped like a house dog, and it did not move like a dog." I think by house dog she means a domestic animal. "It was larger than a coyote. I had an impression of severe scruffiness. I could not see its face at all clearly, only that it was a weird, creeping, stomach low to the ground canine. I had never seen a silhouette like that, including wolves that I had seen in books and zoos. Not much TV for me at that time. At that point, a figure of a man," with a question mark, so she's like, a man, maybe, "emerged directly from behind the bushes into which the canine had skulked. Night had almost fallen, but I could see that he was very tall, had long, ratty-seeming hair, and a long, ratty beard. I could see his clothes were literally in tatters, and I could see that his fingernails were very long on hands that hung down on his sides. I could not see his eyes. He shambled," and I use that word correctly, implying some kind of walking disorder, "directly towards us across the park. The canine did not reappear. I had heard no noises from the bushes at all, so I concluded he could not have been attacked by the canine in the few seconds they must have met behind that same set of bushes. As he came closer, I saw his ratty hair and beard, his long fingernails, and tattered clothing more clearly. Alarm bells were going off nonstop in my head. I decided that we were seeing a werewolf and took off running, leaving my pal behind. She followed me. We ran out of the park to the bustling UT streets. Finally, headed for the dorm, we were crossing a very short crosswalk when I noticed that an old, arthritic, grizzled white dog was slowly crossing from the other side. I looked at it as it passed right by me, as I do all animals, and it stopped dead in its tracks, crouched awkwardly on all four legs, and stared directly into my eyes with totally blind eyes, milky blue-white, no pupils. I stared back unbelievingly. My heart was still thumping from running, and my mind was still shocky over all that had just happened, and now it was still continuing with people and cars all around us. It craned its head to look over its shoulder at me, not turning its body around, still in this awkward, painful-looking four-legged crouched position. I leapt away from it and headed for home. People did notice this incident and stared at the dog and at me. At this point, I heard a horn blaring and whirled back around to see that a car had driven right up to the crosswalk, inches away and with lights full on the dog, and was honking and honking its horn to try to move it out of the road. It did not seem to notice the car, the lights, or the horn. It just squatted and it was still staring after me. People were standing and staring at the dog, end quote. I don't really know what was being implied here with this other second dog, because she didn't mention the dog, the original canine that she said didn't look like a dog, was too big to be a coyote, etc. The one that she claimed had turned into the man, she didn't mention that it was white, but she did mention it was walking funny. So I wasn't really sure. I guess she's trying to say the first canine creature, the man, and then the grizzled dog at the end, the white blind dog, were all the same entity, which, who am I to say that they weren't? I mean, I can't say that they were, but can't say that they weren't either. This experience was certainly interesting for me. I know many people still think, like I did when I was little, that werewolves can only change with the full moon, but that isn't true at all. It's just that the change becomes more complete progressively each night, with only a few of the beginning phases offering any respite for the poor soul who's trapped under whatever spell they've befallen to have been cursed so terribly. It isn't any form of real or severe bad luck or anything like that to just happen upon a werewolf, but it's very rare to see one transform like that right before one's very eyes. Also, remember, this isn't bone-cracking, skin-ripping, complete whole-body, Incredible Hulk-type transformations like we've all been led to believe since our childhoods here. It's more of an energetic shift and a forced shift in perception for the witnesses or victims in these cases. I've explained this many times when we talk about reptilians and how they may have, and I'm not making a statement here, guys, I'm just saying what we've discussed previously, that they may have taken over some celebrities or some political leaders and things like that. It's not that it's a giant reptilian like walking around in a suit. Reddit user Groundball Double Play posted about their experience with a shape-shifting entity, and they said it happened in a place called Canyon de Chelly on a Navajo reservation in Arizona. He was on the reservation visiting his mother and his friend Jenny. He and Jenny decided to go to a local rug auction. The auction ended up going on for too long, and our witnesses wanted to leave early at around 9 p.m. The way back to his aunt's house was on a very simple 2-lane road through empty scrub and surrounded by the canyons. The blackness of the night was almost its own thing, but it wasn't anything unusual for that area at that time of night and for the season. It was a remote area that was very far from any type of civilization, and as their headlights illuminated the lane lines in front of them, they were both lost in their own thoughts. It wasn't like this was a road they had never traveled. They knew it was going to be dark and eerie, and it was like, whatever. That's when our witness noticed something strange out of the corner of his eye. He said, quote, "That's when I noticed the dog. At first it was just a flash of white in the corner of my vision, and then I craned my neck to get a good look at it. A big white German Shepherd was running parallel to our car, about 100 yards off the road and just a little bit behind us. Something about it made the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. I knew we must have been going 40 or 50 miles per hour, but it was gaining on us. I could feel my heart rate pick up while I stared at it. As it came perpendicular to us, it began to draw up off its front feet until it was running on 2 legs like a human being. When it turned its head to look at me, my stomach dropped. Even from that distance, I was sure I could see a red glint to its eyes, and a feeling of dread washed over me. I must have made a noise because Jenny touched my leg and asked what was wrong. I glanced at her wordlessly and then gestured out the window, but as I turned back, the dog was gone. Not wanting to scare her, I told her that the darkness had been playing tricks on me, and I closed my eyes, determined to sleep the rest of the way home. The next night, after a lot of food and even more visiting, I had holed up in my room to get ready for bed. I was staying on the second floor of the house, and my window overlooked the street. The houses are fairly spread out, but the road is lined with street lamps, the nearest of which is less than a block away on the opposite side. I turned out my light and went to the window to pull down the shades so the light wouldn't keep me up. Fear hit me like a sucker punch to the gut when my eyes drifted across the road. There in the light of the street lamp was that same German Shepherd. It was standing on its hind legs in a way that I knew canine anatomy should not allow, and it was staring straight back at me. From that close, it was obvious that it had deep red eyes and fur that was a yellowish white. I don't know how long we watched each other. I knew better than to stare it in the eyes, but I was too terrified to turn away. Finally, it dropped down to all fours and walked away. I slept with a knife next to my bed, and the bedroom door locked that night." End quote. So let's unpack this kind of piece by piece, or at least a little slower than usual, because something at the very beginning of his statement grabbed my attention and stuck out to me. He said that at first when he noticed the dog, it was, quote, "just a flash of white in the corner," end quote, the corner of his vision. And I'm wondering, do these things sometimes just appear? I mean, it's a reasonable question because they are known, at least some of the time, to just randomly disappear into thin air. So why not the other way around? Why not just randomly appearing out of thin air? I wonder if they're another one of these entities that can remain invisible to the human eye, or possibly that they remain cloaked somehow until they feel it's the right moment to show themselves. And I don't want to get too hung up on that one detail, but like I said, just keeping it in mind, it did stick out for me. Also from Reddit, we have a user named 420blazeit who was driving along Highway 97 near Mount Shasta, which if you follow my channel and watch the videos I put out regularly, these pre-recorded ones, you will know is a special place of danger and of magic, unlike any other places almost that we talk about here on this channel. So this guy was driving with his wife at around midnight through a heavily wooded area with no street lights. There was nothing but dense and thick darkness all around them, but neither one was really concerned about all that because they had both been familiar with the area. Up to a certain point, the drive had been uneventful. Our witness said, quote, "We rounded a corner when I saw something fast and low to the ground dart across the street at about 50 to 60 yards ahead of us. I saw the glowing animal eyes and the body that was the size/shape of a big dog. We saw animals the whole road trip, as we usually did. I asked my wife if she saw it too, and she confirmed. The body wasn't 100% clear because our headlights hadn't reached that section of the road yet. When we got to that exact point in the road where the animal crossed, we looked to that side to see if there was anything there. There was a man dressed in army fatigues walking down the road. He didn't look at us, just kept walking. It was pitch black and he didn't have any type of light with him. He was only lit up by our headlights. We both got full body chills when we saw him because we were expecting to see that animal. I know that area has a magical/mystical history with a lot of unexplained sightings. This is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. We were fully creeped out," end quote. Now, this could be a giant coincidence, guys, but I don't believe in coincidences, especially not in the paranormal. While this is yet another example of a shape-shifting canine entity, please don't forget that isn't always the case, and there's much more than just shape-shifting canines out there, just dogs, right? So there's more than just werewolves and dogmen, if you will. I want to say that maybe it's just canines are the most common, but I wouldn't be able to say that with much confidence. Maybe those are just the ones I most often hear about personally. Let me know in the comments below, please, if you know of any reason why canines would be more prominent than anything else for entities to shift into. Also, don't forget to send your encounters with shapeshifters or anything else paranormal, supernatural, extraterrestrial, or otherworldly to my email. That information will be given at the end of the video, and it's always linked in the description box. So let's move on. Also from Reddit, user I'm a Pizza remembered a bizarre experience he had as a child. He said he and all of his siblings shared a room and they were all in bed for the night when suddenly and out of the blue, he jumped up in his bed and noticed the room was particularly dark. He felt compelled to get up and go over to the one window in the room, and so he did. And in the darkness of the night outside, he saw something he would never forget. I'll let him tell the rest of it. He said, quote, "I saw a massive black dog standing at the road directly under seemingly the only street light that was working. As I was staring at this dog, it turned its head toward me and I saw it had red eyes. It stared directly back at me for what felt like forever, but before turning to face ahead again, and then the street light flickered and went out, and I could no longer see the glow of its eyes. No more than a moment later, the street light returned, and in place of the dog was now a very tall man, around 7 feet tall, all features completely obscured by darkness aside from one thing: red eyes that looked directly at me for ages before he walked away. As he walked down the road, though, he gradually hunched over more and more until he returned back into the large dog, end quote. At first, I was thinking that maybe this was some sort of hellhound and became even more convinced when he described the quote-unquote tall man who had taken the animal's place underneath the light. This one really creeped me out, guys, because I feel like this does have some elements, at least, of the demonic. I know many people think all shape-shifting and everything having to do with skinwalkers is demonic, but that just isn't true. Sure, it's all scary and has to do with negative, evil, and lower vibrational entities, but not the demonic specifically. Now, one thing I will point out is that the witness said that at first the light blinked out and the eyes stopped glowing when the huge dog transitioned into a man, but then that the man clearly transformed back into the dog as it walked away, right in front of this witness's face. I don't know what to make of that, but just telling you the parts of the story that stuck out to me. I'm still trying to make the connections here, and sometimes I think out loud and go off on tangents, and I try not to do that in the pre-recordeds like I constantly am doing in the live streams. More from Reddit. This one comes from poster para_normal, and it's one of several reports of not a canine, but a feline, a cougar-type entity. Our witness was working at a summer camp with some of his friends at the time, and in their free time, they would all hike and explore the woods together. On the day in question, he and his friend Taylor were hiking along a trail in beautiful and clear weather. He said, quote, "After working, we took an hour or two off to hike some trails. Taylor and I went down a trail alone. The sun was shining through the trees as we crossed a bridge and a creek. It was a nice and peaceful break. You would think that there would be lots of noise in the forest as we hiked, but the only noises that were made were our own shoes hitting the dirt. It was eerily silent." Where have we heard that before? Taylor and I went over a small hill and came down, and that's when we heard the sound of rustling leaves to our right. We both froze and looked over to see a figure going down a hill of leaves as it stutter-stepped to catch itself from tumbling down the hill. At first glance, it looked like a boy with a white t-shirt, shorts, and a necklace, which was very confusing because we were the only ones at the camp. A couple seconds into the fall, it started to look like a mountain lion, which was common at this camp. The figure seemed to change as it went down the hill, which I couldn't explain. Taylor and I stopped to look at each other briefly after it had passed out of sight. We went over to the hill to get a better look, and nothing was there. It was gone. Taylor got on the walkie-talkie to tell our group that we saw something, but when he was asked what it was, he didn't have an answer. I pressed him on it too, and he had no idea what that was, which was very bizarre because it wasn't more than 40 feet from us. It would be one thing if only I saw it and couldn't put my finger on it, but Taylor saw it too and didn't have an answer either, end quote. It sounds like whatever this thing was, it was possibly having trouble staying present in our own reality, and maybe it was injured or something and couldn't shift back from the boy to the mountain lion as swiftly as it usually would have been able to. From user Hamish and Andes, there comes a report of a shape-shifting creature that defies an easy categorization. It was a cool and calm evening when he and some friends decided to go down to the local supermarket in order to ride their skateboards in the parking lot. The lot was described as very well lit, and at first they saw something very odd, and then it all turned very bizarre very quickly. Our witness said of what happened to them that night, quote, "We were skating around and just playing around in general when one of my mates spotted a rabbit. Being curious teens, we began chasing it through the car park, which I may add is lit very brightly due to the streetlights. As we were chasing it, I kid you not, this thing changed into a cat. We still kept chasing it, as we obviously thought we were seeing things, which we were. It then changed into what obviously looked like a fox to all of us. May I remind you all that this place was lit up and we could all see it clearly as day. One of my mates stopped chasing as he was confused, and understandably so. Just before the thing got to a nearby shrubbery, the other mate who was still chasing with me stopped and said, 'What the F word is that?' This thing had literally turned into a cougar-like cat about 3 feet high and slowed down from its running speed to a walking pace and looked back at us as it slowly walked into the shrubs. We promptly went home. Whatever this was, it went from a small rabbit about a foot wide to a huge predator cat. I wish I had some answers, end quote. So do I. I was thinking that maybe it was trying to lure the kids into the woods or something, but it didn't seem aggressive at all and merely looked back at them when they quit chasing it eventually. However, maybe the area was just too brightly lit for it to have really done anything more than that. So guys, one thing, please, I want y'all to promise me you will always remember about skinwalkers and shape-shifting entities. Always keep this in the front of your mind, no matter what. All right, I'm begging you. It's that regardless of what image they're presenting themselves as at any given moment, there's always an entity behind it all. Like, there's always a human form or something similar to a human form underneath it all. It's never just one animal shifting into another. There has to be the underlying entity. I think those kids were being lured, and they're lucky they got out of there alive and with all of them unharmed and completely intact physically. Now that we've gone through some encounters, I want to talk just a little bit about the phenomenon of shapeshifting itself. And at first, I wasn't going to do this and normally would have done it in the beginning, but these encounters just left too many wide open-ended questions for me. And I want to make sure that everyone leaves this video with a better understanding of what's happening here, at least a better understanding than when they first clicked to watch, right? So whether or not you even believe in shapeshifting or shapeshifting entities as a real thing or not, there's not a doubt in my mind that as soon as it's mentioned, most of you will think of some horror movie you saw or some legend you've heard of at some point in your life that involves a werewolf or some similar creature. It's okay, you can admit it because my mind goes there too. Immediately. The fact of the matter is, though, guys, that these are only a very small part of this whole phenomenon. A website I recently came across, simply titled Mythology, puts it perfectly by saying, quote, shapeshifters are as diverse in their abilities as they are in their appearance. Even shapeshifting, the trait which unifies them, is sometimes more of a curse than an actual magical ability. In ancient mythology, shapeshifting is just one of the endless magical abilities used by godlike characters. In trickster folklore, shapeshifting is the character's only magical ability, but they combine so much cunning with their shapeshifting abilities that they are still a powerful force. In romantic fairy tales, shapeshifting is a burden upon powerless characters who have usually been tricked or cursed by a more powerful magical being, end of quote. So in that last example, think like Beast, you know, from Beauty and the Beast, my favorite Disney movie. The rose, the petals falling off the rose, he's actually a handsome prince, but he's turned into this beast as part of a curse for his, I think it was his ego or something like that. And let's not forget the world of extraterrestrial shapeshifters, which we've discussed many times here on this channel. So I also wanted to talk about the stranger side of shapeshifting, if you will, and we can start with the centuries-old Scottish legends of the wild and deadly beast known as the Kelpie. If you come into my live intuitive oracle stream on the weekends, then you know that some of the decks I use talk about these types of myths and legends. And in fact, that's the first place I had ever heard about anything like a Kelpie. This thing is absolutely terrible. And it has the ability to transform itself into numerous forms, including that of gorgeous and seductive women. It was mostly feared throughout the 1600s and 1700s, which is when reports of the Kelpie were at their height. They would lurk in the marshes around the Scottish lochs, always waiting and ever ready for their next victim to cross their path. The word Kelpie is derived from an ancient Scottish term that literally translates to water horse. The Kelpie's whole goal was to drag its victims down into the depths of the marshes or even the loch itself and then take their souls. Now, I honestly do not believe that there are very many entities out there that can take someone's soul, but I can't say I know that for sure. Kelpies aren't one of them. Here's the thing. Skinwalkers and shapeshifters, even the ones of the canine kind, are all said to have become what they are by means of some sort of curse or spell, and not a good one, and whether they did it to themselves or not. Therefore, For me, it would stand to reason that they would first have to steal your soul in order to imbue you with whatever magic is needed to keep you morphing and shifting into all different types of things in order to be able to procure the most new souls to keep the whole thing going. There are many people who believe that the Loch Ness Monster of today is one of these shape-shifting kelpies left over from long ago and still waiting for more victims. Here's an account I came across of someone saying they'd encountered a kelpie and lived to tell about it. It was recent too, in 2007, and a man from Devon, England named Martin Whitley was in the wilds of Dartmoor showing some American visitors the area. Everything was perfectly normal until it wasn't, and that's when something strange caught his eye. About 600 feet away from them, Martin saw a gigantic black-colored mass moving across the moors. He had a camera with him, and he focused the telephoto lens on the mass, trying to figure out what in the world he was looking at. As he stared through the lens, though, he was completely baffled, and no reasonable answer came to him. He was more than a little disturbed when he saw that the mass was shifting from one shape to another, taking several forms of various beasts as he watched in horror, and I'm sure in some shock as well. It went from being a large black mass to looking like a dark dog in the water, and then to a sleek-looking black mountain lion. It changed from the mountain lion into the black bear to a large boar, and then it looked like something that resembled a large black pony. I don't know how this story ends, but I would like to think that he just quickly led the Americans out of there and none of them even bothered to look back. I wonder if he took any photos of it, but I doubt it, as the article with the encounter did not include pictures or links to photos. It also ended abruptly without telling us what Martin had done about this and if anything else happened to them afterwards. Also, when discussing shapeshifters, we would be remiss not to talk about so-called witches and their familiars. Witches are known to be able to transform into a wide variety of animals at their will, and while I know some people draw the line at information like this, that would be a very big mistake in my opinion, and one that could end up costing someone their life. So, with witchcraft, there's a creature that very few outside of the craft itself know about, and that's the familiar. I know that most people here on this channel know what a witch's familiar is and what it's called, but believe it or not, there are many people who have no idea what a familiar is. In the 15 and 1600s, when witchcraft was said to be running rampant throughout and all across England, it was widely believed that they used all sorts of small animals for a wide variety of reasons. One of those reasons was so that they could keep an eye on those who they thought wished to do them harm, like spies. However, these weren't animals in the traditional or normal sense of the word, and we aren't talking about Cinderella or Snow White and their fictional ability to dance, sing, and communicate with small woodland animals and other creatures. Familiars, and sometimes witches themselves, were said to be demonic creatures that merely were able to make themselves look like all of these small and unassuming animals. In the Middle Ages, black cats, black dogs, hedgehogs, mice, owls, and hares were said to be the favorite types of familiars. The continent of Africa is huge, okay? It covers more than 11.5 million square miles, and with its tales of deadly demonic leopard men can be heard all over the land. West Africa, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria is where this particular phenomenon really dominates. It's important to note here that for the people living in those areas, the leopard is a creature of great fear and reverie. For the most part, and according to most African teachings, the leopard is the creature that directs the human soul into the afterlife after the body dies. The leopard in that culture is what's called a totem animal, which is said to be a creature that can effortlessly transform itself from flesh and blood to spirit. Then, while in that same spiritual space, it has the ability to travel from our three-dimensional reality to the domain where the soul resides after death. So guys, I could go on and on and on here, but I won't, as this video is already getting to be very long. I didn't want to leave today without discussing the Fae and how they're said to be remarkable shapeshifters. One of the most remarkable and strangest of all of them, though, was known as the Dryad. The Dryad is a definitive elemental of magical proportions that would take the ability to shapeshift to an extreme and very unique level. It was a supernatural entity that featured heavily in ancient Greek mythology and which was exclusively associated with the woods, forests, and trees. It also had the ability to transform itself into trees, and so it makes sense that this is where it lurked most, if not all of the time. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out with me, and if you enjoyed hanging out with one another in the premiere. Please spread the love by sharing this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a positive comment. Also, guys, do not forget to check out my YouTube shorts. I do Intuitive Oracle in short format. I try to do funny things. I do dances. I do the put a finger downs, and I kind of lip sync a lot. I do whatever I'm feeling for the day, and I just feel like they could use my shorts. The YouTube shorts could use a little more love. Check out the description box for some important links, ways to donate to the channel, links to Amazon for the Kindle and paperback and Audible version of my books Missing the Fae Theory, Encounters with Evil, 101 True and Terrifying Stories, Shadow Entities, Sleep Paralysis and Beyond, Danger at Your Door, Terrifying Encounters with Black-Eyed Kids, Midnight Visitors, Creepy Tales of Black-Eyed Children, Campfire Stories Volume 1, Campfire Stories Volume 2. And sometime in the near future, before May, you guys will get Gone, Mysterious Disappearances. And I am talking mysterious. Like someone blinks their eye and the other person's gone, never to be seen or heard from again. So I'm really excited about that. If you've ever read any of my books, please go on Amazon, give it 5 stars and a great review. If you want to purchase a book through me so that I can autograph it for you and send it out, email me, GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com, and that's also the email you'll use to send me your own listener encounters. That is personal encounters with extraterrestrial, paranormal, supernatural, otherworldly entities, experiences, phenomenons, whatever you've experienced, I want to hear about it. If you want to remain anonymous, that is perfectly fine as well. Also in the description box, you will find the tentative, usual, pretty normal schedule for the week. We have tons of live streams on this channel. We have new shorts almost every day, Monday through Friday, at least one a day, sometimes 2, sometimes I go crazy. And I just feel like if you're only watching the pre-recordeds, then you're really missing out, because Ghost Dragon ZW live streams twice a week by himself. Paranormal Pixie live streams twice a month by herself. Then we have Ghost Dragon ZW and I on Tuesday afternoons at 1 p.m. Eastern, and on Friday or Saturday nights for Live Intuitive Oracle. That is soon, as of next week, actually. So the weekend you guys will be watching this. You'll be watching it if you watch the premiere on Monday. So it premieres Monday. That Friday coming up is going to be the first week of Live Intuitive Oracle being done always on Friday for the foreseeable future. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If nobody told you today, I got your back. I believe in you. You can do anything you put your mind to, because, not because of the cliche of everyone just telling you that because they want to make you feel good, but because it's really true. The power of manifestation. If you put your mind to it, if you're set on it, you will be successful. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.